In an increasingly polarizing world, sports allow people from all backgrounds and with different ideologies to join together in supporting the same team or player without question. Nothing else can claim to do this with such frequency and passion as sports. The Locker Room focuses on local sports and highlights the achievements made by our prep and collegiate sports from around the Spokane area. Justin Reed, former sports editor at the Gonzaga Bulletin and current sports reporter at the Spokesman Review, grew up in Spokane where he attended Meade High School and later went on to graduate from Gonzaga University in 2017 with a degree in journalism. Now, here's your host, Justin Reed.
Hello and welcome back to the Locker Room. It's been a while, but I have a very special guest, kind of sticking with the uniqueness of I had the racquetball and the frisbee golf, and now I have an MMA fighter. Very different, but still unique. This is Conor Astleford, a local MMA fighter, and he's going to kind of tell us what it's like. And a lot of us probably are unsure of what that really means. We watch it on TV. You see the big UFC names. You see Conor McGregor, is the most obvious one with all of his antics. But for you, when did this all begin for you?
For me, I think getting into wrestling as a kid, and then going on to high school and wrestling, and then once that ended, I was just kind of looking for something else to kind of fill that void, I guess.
So you started with wrestling, and obviously MMA that's half of it is wrestling. Yeah. What kind of style are you? Are you more of a wrestler?
I'd say wrestler, and then there's jiu-jitsu, which is like arm bars, submissions, choking people out. So that's kind of where I get most of my wins or finishes. But I mean, I like to do it all.
Just kind of depends maybe on the opponent too.
Yeah, it depends on his style, where he's efficient.
So you said that you started from wrestling. How'd you get into wrestling? What was that like?
My dad just put me in it when I was like 6 or whatever the age was. Just started wrestling, liked it, was pretty good at it. Just kind of stuck with it.
Well, let's kind of talk about your dad for a second, because I do know him, and Dean's a great guy. When did you finally, because I've seen you guys do a little bit of sparring, a little bit of, Dean likes to think that he can still take you. When was that time that you knew you're like, Dean, you can't, I'm gonna take you?
Probably around like 16 to 18.
Yeah,
getting a little older, and I was getting bigger and stronger.
Yeah, he likes to think that he can take you a little bit, but
that's when I was for sure. Maybe 10 though.
Maybe 10 is that's when you knew you're like, yeah. I could take that old man down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's getting a little frail, especially with the shoulder surgery. Yeah. He breaks easily.
Oh yeah.
So if going back to Conor McGregor too, is there any fighters that you look at as to replicate their style, or anyone that you enjoy watching the most?
My big-time guy, my favorite guy, used to be Chael Sonnen. He was kind of like the original Conor McGregor, really talking a lot of smack and just really out there. But, yeah, he was an Olympic wrestler, just a good guy to look up to.
So, you saw the whole Conor McGregor thing that happened where he freaked out. He didn't he hurt a local guy?
Yeah, Mike Chiesa, yeah.
So, do you know the guy that was hurt?
Well, yeah, a little bit. Like, he's trained with us a few times. He's been around, not super well, but yeah, he's been in the gym. What
was, kind of the feeling in the MMA world when all that happened? Because it was, kind of shed a poor light on the sport, I think. A lot of people looked at it and were like, ugh.
Yeah, I just think, I don't know, a lot of people kind of thinking like, oh, is this scripted? Is this like some WWE type of move? And a lot of people were, well, Mike Chiesa, he pulled out of his fight with a cut, so, he's essentially out, a payday and a big fight, potentially. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of people looked at it probably like pretty disgusting for the sport.
Why do you like fighting? Why do you like the sport?
I just like, setting goals and competing and trying to get, to where you're trying to be. It's just nice to win and go out there and compete. Just a competitor.
So you kind of mentioned your progression from wrestling at a young age, and then after high school, this kind of naturally happened. Mm-hmm. Kind of walk me through the steps. Like, how did you really get involved with it?
So, okay, I was probably like 19 at the time, maybe 20, and I was like, oh, God, I want to wrestle. And my best buddy, he was a fighter back in the day. He's still a fighter. But he's like, okay, yeah, Warrior Camp, it's an awesome gym. There's wrestling classes. And I drove there after work and just talked to Joel Thomas, who's my coach at Warrior Camp owner. And he's like, yeah, we got wrestling, and just kind of led to training wrestling, starting doing other classes maybe, and then after maybe 8 months to a year, I just took a fight. I was getting better, and just progresses that way, really.
Just kind of happened, yeah.
Yep.
So what is when those first few months when you were starting, was your plan to be a fighter, or were you just trying to find an outlet?
No,
really?
I was never really into fighting. I was just really, I like training. I like that jiu-jitsu. It was fun. I really picked up on that, but no real big plans to be a fighter. It wasn't something I didn't want to get punched in the head too much.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely the biggest worry, I think, when people look at boxing or MMA and obviously football's in the national spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to those types of injuries, what do you do to kind of remedy and to decrease the likelihood of you having long-term issues?
Really, I think the biggest thing is training smart and having partners that you can trust. And I mean, the fight's the fight. Something may happen, but I've had 10 fights and I've never been hurt. So, I mean, really, just be smart. And if you do eat a big shot, probably sit out, let your brain heal, because that's really all you can do.
So, what did your family say when you were 19, 20, and you're training, and all of a sudden you go to them and you're like, I think I'm going to be a fighter. Like, I think that's something that I want to do. How did they react?
My mom was nervous. My dad was, I think he's pretty nervous, but he was maybe a little bit better with it. Everyone was supportive. I mean, like, I don't know why you're doing that, but they were supportive. My wife, my girlfriend at the time, she was really supportive. So
any of them now, like, is there any issues with them? Like, are they all still pretty much behind you?
My mom's still my mom, but yeah, my dad's really behind me, my stepmom. Everyone's cool with it now.
Well, that's good, yeah, because I mean, it's something that is very unique. It's a sport that, even though like football might be considered more dangerous, I don't think people see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you nailed it. That a lot of it just has to do with fighting smart and training smart, because research has shown that it's the repetitive head injuries without letting it heal that is really the problem. So I mean, it's good to hear. At your training facility, is it you who follows that, or do they follow it pretty well too there?
For the most part, everyone's pretty good about it, but you're kind of accountable for yourself. So if I feel like I don't want to be sparring anymore that night or getting hit anymore, I just step away.
So what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you since you've been fighting?
I really haven't been injured. I guess just like maybe a knee injury, not like a tear or nothing, just sore bumps and bruises.
But nothing too bad, at least?
Yeah, no, I've been fortunate, really.
What about during your wrestling career? Did you ever have any injuries with that?
Same, maybe my shoulder has been kind of hurt, but yeah, nothing major.
I was kind of talking to you before the show about you got a head injury outside of fighting.
Yeah.
Kind of talk to me about that head injury and what happened with that.
That was me and my stepbrother getting a little rambunctious, and one thing led to another. My head was by a bed, and there was a screw sticking out, and he kind of pushed me down and just scraped down my head.
So I bet that felt really nice.
Yeah, that one hurt.
Yeah, that one definitely. I mean, I bet people who are watching this are all kind of cringing with me on that. So, well, it's good that it sounds like the fighting aspect is almost safer than the normal household stuff. So when it comes to the fights, how do you get signed up for one, or how do you how do you sign yourself up for it?
So as an amateur, you'd go to a local promoter, whoever you're going to fight for, and maybe they'll cover costs of travel, this and that. You can't get paid, but you can sign up for a show, and there's normally a matchmaker, and they'll set you up with a fight. Or I'm taking my first fight this upcoming month as a pro, so you got to do blood work, physical. They send you a contract, and you agree on what you're going to get paid. You just sign it, and you get matched up.
So how do you become a pro? How does that work?
For me, my coach just kind of pushed me, and I was like, he just felt like it was time. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll take a pro fight. It would be nice to get paid, but I guess nothing's really stopping anyone from being professional. Just common sense would be, you're ready, you have a winning record as an amateur, you fought some tough guys. I think it just naturally progresses to that.
So, you know, not that I ever would. Do I, like, if I want to become a pro fighter, can I just become a pro right now, or do you have to take some of the steps when it becomes to being an amateur?
I think you need a letter of recommendation. So essentially, you maybe could squeeze by and do it, but I would hope there's someone kind of stopping people from doing that.
It would be pretty stupid because, those head injuries might be more likely if I were to step in.
I know boxing, you got to get licensed, and it's more of a deal. But
yeah. You ever thought about, because I've seen the UFC shows, the Ultimate Fighter, things like that. I don't even know how that works. Like, how do you know how that selection process works or anything like that?
Yeah, our local boy, Mike Chiesa, that's how he... A lot of times now, maybe your coach has a few fighters in the UFC or you know someone, but you'll go down to, maybe it's Vegas they fly you down to, and you all have like kind of auditions, maybe like a couple-minute fight, and they're looking for you to do something kind of entertaining, because that's what the UFC wants. So if you have 3 wins as a professional in a row, you can try out for it. So it's basically a tryout.
And it's just going to happen from there?
Yeah.
So... let's take a quick break, and we'll kind of jump into more of you and your routine and things like that, and we'll just kind of continue this knowledge base of MMA and get people interested in knowing what it's all about. So we'll be right back, and we'll see you right after the break.
Is your child having trouble coping with a personal disability, but don't know where to go? Consider our friends at Breakthrough Incorporated. Breakthrough takes great pride in mentoring their DDA clients who have intellectual disabilities and their BRS clients who have challenging behaviors toward the creation of safe, appropriate, ethically sound life goals. They integrate programs at school and home to enrich their lives. They work hard to make a positive difference in you and your family's lives. Breakthrough provides a highly structured, fully staffed residential setting in local neighborhoods. 6 in Spokane and 2 in the Tri-Cities. Diagnoses affect people differently, so their service to each resident is unique, giving them the opportunity to grow and evolve. For more information on Breakthrough, visit their website at breakthroughincorporated.org.
What? You haven't been to the library lately? Stop in today and see that the library is more than books. Spokane County Library District facilities feature on-site technology, including Wi-Fi, computers, and printers, as well as free use of meeting rooms. The Library District offers events and programs for all ages, from story times to career development and employer classes to Social Security workshops. Our staff is well trained and happy to help. Find out more about your library at scld.org.
Welcome to Tom Sawyer Country Coffee.
Tom Sawyer Country Coffee only roasts the finest organic coffee for our signature blends. Enjoy a cup at our coffee shop and local businesses and organizations across the region.
I'm Tom Sawyer, and we choose the Pacific Northwest.
Alrighty, welcome back to the locker room. This is my guest, Conor Astleford, an MMA fighter and MMA fighter. There we go. So let's go back to we've talked about your routine and kind of your whole process of becoming a fighter. So when it comes to you have a fight. Let's say you have a fight tomorrow night. What are you doing right now to get ready for it?
If I have a fight tomorrow night, I'm cutting weight to make weigh-ins for tonight, sitting in a sauna. Basically, that's what I'll be doing.
So, and I mean, that's probably very similar to what you did as a wrestler. I know I had a couple buddies who were wrestlers, a couple people that I knew, and you knew it was weight day when they would be at lunch and they're not eating, and then they're talking about what they have to do. So is it a pretty similar process to?
It's similar, but wrestling's more mild because say you're wrestling, you're going to weigh in and then you're going to go wrestle that night, maybe an hour later. As to MMA, you have that full 24 hours to rehydrate and replenish your body. So you're doing more. So it's just more drastic. So maybe in wrestling, you're cutting 5 to 7 pounds, but in MMA, I've cut up to 20, 25 pounds.
And just like how long?
I'll diet down, but within 48 hours, I'll really get that process going.
So I mean, you can really drop it really fast.
Yeah, there's a technique to it.
And is it common? I mean, is it just what happens in MMA?
Yeah,
then?
you drink a couple gallons of water a day for a month, 2 weeks, and your body gets used to cycling through that weight of water. And then you cut sodium out and you cut the water out and you trick your body into flushing more water than you normally would.
So is that tough on you anymore, or is it pretty normal?
It's always tough on me.
How do you, I mean, that sounds hard to me. So like, is there anything you can do to make it easier? Like, it just seems like something that you're just kind of sitting there and just dreading.
Yeah, it's the toughest part of the fight for me a lot of the time.
So now let's say it's now tomorrow morning. What are you doing the morning of the fight?
So maybe that night before, I ate maybe a pasta or something to fill me up, and then that morning get some good sleep, maybe eat a pretty solid breakfast, nothing too crazy, and then just kind of, not doing too much, maybe go on a light run or a little exercise, eat a light lunch, and kind of get ready to go from there.
All right, so now it's an hour before the fight. What is happening now?
We've gone through the rules meeting is what they'll have, and then I'm probably in back warming up, trying to stay warm, get the lactic acids out of your muscles so you're ready to fight, and you're warming up, kind of waiting patiently to go.
So is the weigh-ins the same for amateurs as it is as national UFC weigh-ins?
Yeah, it's 24 hours before on the dot.
And do you guys stand face-to-face and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we'll weigh in and then we'll square off, take some pictures, get a couple poses. And
have you ever had any little skirmishes beforehand like the big guys usually like to do?
No, it's been pretty tense, but no pushing or shoving or anything like that.
Well, that's good at least, because I mean that's some entertaining TV when they weigh in, and
oh yeah,
you have a guy like McGregor and he's standing there and he's yapping because that's what he does, and that's a huge part of UFC now is the weigh-in. That's almost pay-per-view. You almost have to pay to see that kind of stuff. So it's always interesting to visualize that, because it's definitely I can see how it's tense, because that's a guy you're going to be throwing punches at
face to face
the next day.
him.
So, all right. So now it's you're warming up, you're getting ready, and now you're walking out there. Do you have like any walk-up music or anything that you?
Yeah, I typically go with maybe Mastodon is kind of what gets me fired up, but anyone could pick whatever they want.
What's the weirdest? Have you heard a weird walkout song?
Yeah, I've heard some corny, maybe like California Girl or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe they're trying to be funny.
Some Katy Perry stuff,
yeah.
just to maybe throw you off. It might be what it is.
Yeah.
Might
be kind of scary, a guy walking out to that.
Oh yeah, that's an intimidating person right there. That's for sure.
This guy doesn't care.
This guy doesn't care at all. He doesn't need to be fired up. He already naturally is. So yeah, let's talk about that too. About getting warmed up, about getting pumped up, fired up. Do you have to do anything to get yourself in that mindset?
I just slowly kind of build up to it, and by the time I kind of walk into the cage and they close the door, I'm just kind of there. For me, it just kind of happens naturally. Just I go out there and maybe slap my legs a little bit, try to pump my arms, something. But
so is is it hard to get to want to, and you're not beating the guy up per se, like you're not trying to hurt him, of course, you're just trying to win, because obviously you don't want to injure someone to the point where they're hurt. So is it hard to be able to differentiate the two of wanting to win without, I just feel like it's hard to be able to kind of separate the two.
Yeah, you're going out there, you're not looking to injure someone, but at the same time, I'm trying to hit you and get out of there. So if I hit you and you get knocked out, hope you're not injured, but at the same time, the guy, as I'm thinking, that guy, maybe he does want to injure me, so you gotta, you have to find that middle ground there, but.
What's the worst injury you've ever seen in fighting?
If I'm looking at UFC fights, Anderson Silva throwing a leg kick, snapping it in half.
That was pretty brutal.
That's happened to a pro here locally recently. So, that's probably about as bad as you're going to get.
Yeah, because knockouts happen.
Fractured skulls, that's happened.
That's not a good one, of course.
Yeah, that's rare, though.
Yeah, that's a pretty hard punch, and hitting it just right.
I think it was a flying knee to his head.
Ooh, that could... that could hurt. Mm-hmm. that could mess you up pretty easily. So now you're in the fight. Now, does your family and friends, do they get special tickets? Do they like front row, or are they somewhere else?
Sometimes I can get them like a comp ticket or whatever, but a lot of times they have to pay and just regular tickets.
Do you ever, the very stereotypical fighting boxing movie, you get hit, or you're up against maybe you're up against the cage, and is there ever any of that, like, oh, there's my family right there, like, and they're they have that look on their face, they're sad, they're worried, like, is there anything ever like that, or are you pretty locked in?
I'm pretty locked in, but I've heard voices slip through, especially the loud ones, and maybe if I get a takedown and I'm right there and I look up, you might see their face. I mean, I've seen people. You kind of get that tunnel vision a little bit, but...
So you kind of mentioned you're hearing voices. Is either of your parents, do they yell a lot? Like, do you ever hear them?
My stepmom, I think she yells the loudest.
You hear her pretty well?
Yeah, I hear her. I hear my coaches is really what I try to...
Yeah.
Because they're, the whole fight, they're giving you advice. Like, to them, they're just looking from the outside in. They're, okay, throw that punch maybe a second sooner. So I'm really trying to, hear them before anything else.
So how many coaches do you have usually with you?
Two corners or two coaches.
Okay, and what are their jobs specifically?
Just basically corner me through the rounds, and then in between rounds maybe give me some water, tell me what I've done, what I'm doing good, not so good.
So do they, or is one of them like able to like fix you up if you have, are they able to fix you up at all, or?
I know I've never really been cut, but yeah, you can get, I don't know if it's them or in the UFC they have a cut man, so they'll maybe Vaseline a cut, check you out, see if you can keep going.
But it's not quite that.
No, like put some ice on your back, they'll do stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So where are some of the places that you fought around here?
I fought, it's just a local show, Proving Grounds. It's my coach's show. I fought that one maybe 7-8 times. That's my main fighting, wherever I'm fighting. But I fought at Clearwater Casino in Lewiston, and I have a fight at the Emerald Queen Casino next month. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's, is that going to be probably your biggest fight or biggest location?
Yeah, the other casino is pretty big too, but this one, Emerald Queen's probably my biggest show.
So where's the local one that you were just talking about?
It's at the Hub Sports Center, and it's also been at the Roxy in Hilliard.
Okay, so you said that's your trainers?
Yeah, it's my coach's
thing
show,
that he sets up. So you said you don't get paid for those. What do you get exposure? Like, is there anyone ever there that are like watching? I don't know if there's anything like that.
Yeah, there's some like fight people there. Maybe there's sometimes photographers there that are with maybe Northwest Fight Scene, or I don't know exactly how it all works. But yeah, you get exposure. Some promoters maybe from a different promotion that might want you on their card. And
is that kind of how that happens? Like when it comes to the Emerald Queen, is that how did that one come to be for you?
So we got some good pro fighters that have been fighting down there. We got guys going to Russia, and my coach, so he has some good fighters, so his name's pretty solid Conor Astleford's ready to fight, and I just got to fight.
Okay, so that's interesting. So is that a pro fight then, or
that's a pro fight?
So is that your first pro fight?
My first pro.
So that's gonna be your first pro fight.
Yeah, my debut.
And when is that?
October 13th.
October 13th, and that's at the Emerald Queen. So, that's gonna be interesting. I mean, you're obviously prepared. I mean, how many amateur fights have you had?
10.
10, and what's your record?
8-2.
8-2. So yeah, I can see why you might think that you're ready for a pro fight. That's pretty. I know I've talked with your dad about one of the losses that you had, and he was telling me, he was like, because he's so used to you doing well, and it was one where I don't remember exactly what he said, but how he was just talking how it was weird seeing you lose, and he was the one time he said where he was actually a little nervous and thinking that it's something, it wasn't going well for you.
Yeah, it was not going well. And that you run into guys like that maybe have trained harder or a little bit more prepared. It was one of those nights. You don't always win them all, I guess.
So, are you pretty pumped for your first pro fight?
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm ready. I'm training a bunch.
That's awesome. That's another, you started from, you weren't even planning on doing this, and now all of a sudden, you're here, and now you're a pro MMA fighter.
Yep.
And what's the next steps? Like, what are your plans for moving forward?
I want to take it slow, get this fight done with, and maybe take another fight and kind of see where that goes, and if I maybe get to 2-3-0, I might start, thinking about trying to get to some bigger organizations and maybe trying to set a goal to get to the UFC or Bellator or another big promotion.
So, I mean, it sounds awesome. I mean, that's really cool, and it's one of those things where I feel like it's a hard sport to plan for, at least from what you're talking to me about. That 8-2 is great. You're moving forward now, but you can't really look like, oh, I can't wait to to move on to the next level, because maybe for whatever reason you get to this next level and it's not exactly what you expected. But are you enjoying it? Like, is it still?
Yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I kind of get anxiety leading up to the fight. It's like you're training and you can't skip a day because you want to be prepared. So life is a little bit more serious when you have an upcoming fight. But I enjoy it. I love training.
So do you know who the guy that you're fighting?
Yeah, he's also making his pro debut. I think his name is Clay Ramant.
Where's he from?
The other side of the state. I'm not exactly sure. I think he was like 5-4 as an amateur. So
how many fights happen usually on a card like this?
I think there is probably at least 8 to 10.
Mm-hmm. So what? I mean, do you ever have any? Like, is there kids ever watching these? Yeah. Do you ever get to talk to them at all? Do they ever try and talk to you?
Yeah, sometimes after a fight, especially if you do well, they'll come up and maybe they have a poster for that. And oh, can you sign this?
So do you have some do they make posters up for your fights even?
Okay. Even as an amateur, I've had posters. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. So what do you tell kids? Or what would you tell kids who are talking to you about being interested in something like this?
Maybe go to the gym and try out some wrestling or jiu-jitsu and slowly maybe work to training some kickboxing or something and just have fun with it. And maybe when you're older and the time's right, it might be something you'll enjoy,
All righty. Is there any way to watch your fight at Emerald Queen? Is it online anywhere? Or?
I would need to look that up. I'm sure there's probably a live stream somewhere.
Okay. Well, perfect.
I'm not extremely sure on that.
Well, we'll be in touch and see if we can't get a few more online viewers if that's the case then, because I think people are interested, and it's a sport that I know people get really fired up about. That's why it's so successful and why UFC makes billions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you taking the time to stop by and talk to us about some MMA fighting. Got some pictures up of you and all your couple of the fights that you've been involved in, and it's it's a vicious sport, but it's one that you're right. It builds you, and there's a lot of different things that are important and impressive about it. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for stopping by again. This was The Locker Room, and hopefully I'll be back soon with another interesting guest. Might not be quite as interesting as MMA, but hopefully it'll be interesting to you. Thanks.